want to talk about a couple things in the news. The two big things in the news today is, or for this week, is the whole Trump was proven innocent of any Russian dealings that rigged the election, and liberals and the far left are having a hissy fit over this stuff. It literally showed them. There's a couple of interviews where they're showing him crying because our president is not a crook, is not a criminal or a traitor. You know, you'd think that'd be a good thing, that they find out that their president isn't a traitor. But no, they wanted him, an innocent man, to go to jail off of hearsay, just rumors. And that's a scary thing when you have people on the far left who automatically, you know, they think when someone is accused of a crime, they should go to jail. Period. Without having to be, you know, even if they might be innocent, they don't care. Just because someone claims that you did something, they think you should go to jail. That's a scary thing. You know, how would they feel if someone came up and said, accuse them of a crime, and then they're automatically arrested and put in jail, even though they know they didn't do it? That's where we're leading today in America. That's getting bad. That's scary. You know, a person is not guilty and then has to prove their innocence. It's supposed to be that they are innocent and given, you know, reasonable doubt until, you know, someone who can prove that they actually committed a crime. But no, that's not how it goes anymore. Anymore, it's you're guilty regardless, just from someone spreading a rumor about you, and then you have to prove your own innocence. That's ridiculous. But it's gotten that bad, and you know, liberals are and the far left are so butthurt that Trump is, you know, a patriot instead of a traitor. Oh well, get over it. Grow the fuck up and act like an adult. Stop acting like a little baby. Seriously, it's getting ridiculous. The next thing I'm going to mention is the Jussie Smollett. I ain't pronouncing that motherfucker's name. I'm pronouncing it the way it's written. That's how it's, you know, written out. I don't care how they want to pronounce it. But that stupid motherfucker, he went and bribed the DA, and the DA fucking let him off. And then they also bribed the judge, and the judge sealed the case so it couldn't be reopened. So, you know, there was a lot of money exchanged over that deal, because that motherfucker is guilty as fuck. You know, everybody knows it. It had so much evidence against him, and the entire police department and all of them, you know, even the mayor, they were like, what the fuck? What is going on? The motherfucker's guilty. Plain and simple. Why'd you let him go? It's because motherfucker paid or bribed, you know, that fucking judge and that DA. So, he's not going to jail, people. Go figure. Another fucking leftist, fucking libtard, fucking pays people off to get off. You know, just like the Clintons did. I still ain't seen that bitch go to jail, or him. Both them motherfuckers are guilty of all kinds of shit. It's literally been proven. But are they in jail? Nope. But we'll just overlook that, you know. Fucking try to put an innocent man in jail instead. It's fucking stupid. But anyway, those are the two big stories going on this week. You can look up more, you know, there's tons of coverage over both of them, so you can look all that up you want. So let's get on to your B-movie, short B-movie reviews. I'm going to do several here. This is kind of like part 2 of the last one I did. Because I had watched so many, you know, so I just figured I'd combine several of them together and just give some short reviews. They don't need to always be so long. The first one we're going to talk about is called, is a sci-fi classic. In fact, Gene Roddenberry was inspired to do Star Trek after seeing it. And it's called Forbidden Planet. It was done back in the early 60s. And it did amazingly quite well for back then. It made $23 million at the box office, so it did really good for back then. The star was Leslie Nielsen. You wouldn't even recognize him, honestly. I mean, you kind of half-ass recognize him, but he just, the way he's acting, it's not, you know, he's normally known for doing, you know, off-the-wall comedy, but in this, he's not doing comedy. He's being straight on, you know. It was actually, it wasn't a half badass movie for back then, to be honest. I thought it was pretty good. Basically, Leslie Nielsen is like this captain of this ship, and of course it's like a flying saucer. But anyways, he's supposed to go check on some scientists on a planet or colony that, you know, almost like the Federation, you know. They're part of a federation or whatever, planets, and they go to check on this colony. The only one left on the colony is one scientist. He tries to shoo him away at first, but it didn't work, and they land on the planet. And come to find out, the scientist has a daughter. So apparently they're the only two that's left on the planet. All the other colonists died, or scientists or whatever. Come to find out, he's been studying some type of ancient machinery that was left on the planet by a race of beings that are long gone. And it creates some kind of mind monster or something, you know. It projects a monster from the subconscious, and it's what originally killed off the old race and killed off all the scientists, and now it's trying to kill Leslie and his crew, but they stop it. The scientist dies, you know, blah blah, end of the monster. So they take off in the ship. He takes the daughter with him, and the scientist stays to blow up the machine so nobody else could try to use it. That's the end of the story. Like I said, it's a pretty good movie. You should give it a try. The graphics weren't all that bad either, surprisingly, for back then. They did a pretty decent job on it, so not bad. Next one is a super classic, sci-fi classic. It was done in the 70s. It's called Logan's Run. Naturally, I've heard of that. Logan, I've heard of this movie many times. I never got around to watching it, and I just eventually here lately decided to watch it. It topped out really well too. It did 25 mil for box office. So $25 million, you know, and they had a pretty low budget, like 500,000 or something. So that made a whopping killer uh, at the box office. Logan Run is basically they live in this city where it stars. You may know Michael York. He's fairly well known. Um, Maybe not as popular today, but he was back then. And then Jenny Gutter, she also was in it. They were pretty well known back then. Anyway, it's basically a society that lives in the city in the future, and they're only allowed to live to the age of 30, and then they're supposed to kill themselves off and make room for newborns. So one dies, and then a newborn takes their place. That way, there's no overpopulation. Apparently, there was some problems with overpopulation, and the city was built to control that. But they have this thing called a carousel, and it's supposedly, you know, every now and then one of them actually gets to live and continue living. But no one has seen anybody who's made it through the carousel. Everyone supposedly, they're guessing there are a few that makes it through, because it's supposed to be given a chance to make it through, but no one's ever seen anybody. Now they have this group called the Sandman. They're like police, sort of. If someone starts running and doesn't want to go on the carousel at the age of 30, and they decide to run so they can live, the Sandman are there to go and kill them off, basically. And it's weird. He finds an ankh, which is basically like a cross with a loop on the top of it, instead of, you know, just you know, a T. It's more of like, you know, two arms and a straight bottom and then a circle on top. That's an ankh. Anyways, he finds this ankh symbol, like necklace, on a person he kills. He's a Sandman, and his buddies, his best friend's a Sandman. And then he goes to take it to, it's like an AI computer or whatever, that reads, I don't know, takes material possessions and all kinds of stuff, does all kinds of stuff for him. Anyway, the AI or the computer wants him to be a kind of like a spy. He's still got 4 years left, but the computer they have these little dots in their hands, in the palms of their hands, and green is, you know, they're still good, they still got plenty of life, and then it turns red when they become 30, and they're supposed to join the carousel. Well, the machine turns his red so that he can pretend he's a runner and try to find a place called Sanctuary, which is supposed to be where all these runners are going to, and they carry that symbol. So he's like, okay. So and when he asks if he gets his lives back, his years back, the machine don't answer him. So he goes and looks for someone who's a member of the group that's holding Sanctuary. He finds this girl who has an ankh tied around her neck, and he communicates with her that he wants her to go talk to her friends. He wants to find Sanctuary. Her friends don't want to do it because they've never heard of the Sandman running. But she helps him out, anyway, even though they want to kill him. She helps him out. She helps him find other people, and they find this door where they can use the Ankh symbol to get out of the city. They have to go underground or underneath the city, and they find all these water machines that are like falling apart and crap, and they're supposed to supply the city with power, and they're just deteriorating because of neglect. They get out of the city, but when they do, they find a robot that's been freezing all the other runners that have made it through. This robot's been freezing them, and he's like, well, people in the city, they'll come for the protein. So he's been freezing animals and crap like that. This job of constantly freezing protein and other goods so the people in the city can come collect them and use them. But apparently he's been forgotten. Nobody knows he's there anymore. But he continues to freeze animals and stuff. But the runners, they think they're going to Sanctuary, and he freezes them. Well, they end up tearing apart the robot and escaping. They find the outside world. They realize they're outside, and they find this like a Washington D.C. It's all you know, vines have grown over it. You know, plant life. It's all in disarray. They find an old man there, and he tells them. He doesn't tell them much except for, you know, he's an old man, and they're like they've never seen an old man before. Blah blah blah, and they tell him, if you want to see some young people, we'll show you some young people, because they want to go back to the city and get everybody out of the city, that they don't have to die, they can grow old. So they go back to the city, and they end up destroying the machine and freeing all the people in the city, you know, and that's pretty much the end. It's a good movie. It was actually not that bad. It was actually pretty decent for what it was. Yeah, the gun laser graphics were a little silly, and some of the clothing, you know, disco age. So yeah, it was a little silly, but it was a pretty good movie. I definitely highly recommend it if you're looking for a good sci-fi story. All right, moving on. The next one, I heard they're doing a remake of Logan's Run. They're supposed to reboot it or redo it. I also heard that they, in the same video or article, I saw that they were also redoing or remaking a movie called Rabid. So I was like, what is Rabid, you know? So I went to go look it up, and it said it's some type of like zombie-like movie. I was like, really? I was like, I don't know, it's 70s and it's a zombie movie and it's not George A. Romero, I'm probably not going to like it. But I went ahead and decided to watch it, and I really wish I'm telling you right now, it was weird. It was just weird. I made it through the movie, it was just really weird. It stars Marilyn Chambers, which was a real hottie back then. Yes, you get to see some titties in this. Yes, you do. But anyways, the woman was really good looking. But it stars her, and she's the main. So, we have Rabid, starring Marilyn Chambers. It made about $1 million. It wasn't real popular. So, it starts off with her getting in a bike wreck, and her boyfriend. I don't know. This hospital is like out in the middle of nowhere. She gets the bike wreck, and they just happen to be up on the scene, and they come and grab her, and they do some type of plastic surgery. I guess plastic surgery was still fairly new at this time. So they did some type of plastic surgery. Well, what it did was, I don't know, it kind of like, the cells he used or whatever, the skin graft, for some reason, he combined some kind of cells with the skin graft, and it created some kind of parasite. And it lives. What's weird is when I first saw her drinking blood, I thought it was weird, because she grabs hold of this guy and she jerks, and he's like, "Oh, I think something just stuck me or poked me or cut me or something like that," and he's bleeding out his side, and I'm like, and she's got blood coming out of her mouth, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? I still didn't understand what was going on at first. I was like, did she just bite him or something? Because I was wondering if maybe she bit him or something. Because he acted like it came from his tit or something. I'm like, what the fuck? Because there's blood coming out of his tit, and I'm like, what the fuck? But anyways, you later find out she's got this parasite that's growing inside her underarm, and it's like I don't know. It looks like a little spike with this extension on it. Like I don't know, like a vein or something. Anyway, it pokes into people and it sucks blood out of them. Yeah, I know, it's really weird, wasn't? And then after she does this to her victims, they tend to act like they're on rabies or something, and then they're wanting to eat people and shit like a zombie. It's really weird. But anyway, she keeps feeding on people. She escapes the hospital. She goes to see her boyfriend, and then she changes her mind. She don't want to hurt him. So she goes to stay with a friend of hers, her best friend. She don't want to hurt her, so she keeps going out late at night and, feeding off people. Eventually, her friend keeps trying to stop her because she thinks she's like a drug addict or something, because that's the way she looks like. Anyways, the town's going crazy because there's a bunch of people turning into zombies because of her. But eventually she can't take it anymore, and she kills her friend. And the boyfriend walks in on her, and she takes off and knocks him down the stairs, takes off, and then she later calls him and says, I'm trying to experiment, prove you it's not me, blah, blah, blah. And her latest victim gets up and kills her. And they eventually find her body in a dumpster and throw it in a garbage truck. And that's the end of the movie. It's weird. If you're into weird horror flicks like that, more power to you. I just found it really strange. I don't know why anyone would make a remake of that. But apparently they're going to. Now the last movie I'm going to talk about is a movie that, some may know it, but most probably don't. It's a movie back in the 80s. It was called Secret Admirer. It's like a romantic comedy. It only made about $8 million. It wasn't really popular, but some people might have known of it, or whatever. It didn't do horrible for a comedy back then, but it didn't do all that great either. It was okay. It started C. Thomas Howell. You might know him from movies like Soul Man and stuff like that. It had Lori Loughlin in it, that woman from Full House, and then it had Kelly Preston in it, which apparently Kelly Preston's still looking pretty good today, even though she's probably in her 50s. But anyways, it was one of those, he basically writes like this, or he don't. Lori Loughlin writes the love letter and sticks it in his locker, and he thinks it's from somebody else, even though him and Lori Loughlin in the movie are like best friends or whatever. He thinks it's from somebody else. She has a crush on him. He doesn't know it. But he definitely wants to hook up with this blonde chick, which is Kelly Preston. He really wants to get with her. You know, she's, you know, back in the 80s, the one that, you know, back in the 80s, you know, girls knew how to dress sexy. And she was one of those that knew how to dress and look real good. You know, the top girl in the high school, you know, the cheerleader type, blah, 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 you know. She was that type, glamour girl. Anyways, he wanted to get with her. He's trying to figure out who wrote this letter. Well, he leaves it in his little brother, which is Corey Haim. He also is in this movie, but he only has a short part. He's just his little brother. When he was real young. Anyway, he's been stealing money from him. He still takes the letter to read it. Well, he sticks it in his father's book, one of his father's class books. He has a late night class he goes to. Well, the mother ends up seeing it in the book when he goes to school and reads it and thinks that her husband's having an affair. She sticks it back in the book. The dad goes to class, and then he ends up reading it after the teacher borrows his book and then gives it back to him. He reads the letter, and he thinks it's from the teacher, which apparently, you know, they're all real good. The dad and the mom are good friends with the teacher and her husband, which is actually a cop. Another letter, Thomas Howell wants to write a letter to Kelly Preston because he thinks that he'll get her if he writes her a letter. And you know, she's dating some older jerk or whatever, 20-year-old or whatever, and they're like 16, 17 years old. But anyway, he wants to write her a letter, so he writes her a letter, and Lori looks it over, and Lori's all like, "Oh no, can't let that happen." So she rewrites it for him and gives it to Kelly. Kelly wants to know who it is. She won't tell him. So then she ends up writing another letter for him, and Kelly again wants to know who it is. So she tells him to meet him. They decide to meet, and they start dating or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Apparently, she's really high maintenance. He don't care for that, so he wants Lori instead of her. And, you know, fucking... the second letter is found in the teacher's purse. The cop, he reads it and he thinks that she's having an affair, and he starts following his friend and her around because they're talking about it, but they don't ever really do anything. And then he gets with his wife, his friend's wife, and now they both know about it, and they all know about it. They get in this big fight, and then later on they find out that the letters were not written. The letters were written by the kids, and they're like, "Oh my gosh!" So they all make up, and then, you know, C. Thomas Howell, he chases Lori down because he realizes she's the one who wrote the letters, and she's supposed to be taken off for some vacation for a year, but he stops her, and they fall in love, and that's pretty much the end of the movie. Now, this had a lot of young teenage actors that are recognizable in the movie. I recognize the guy who played Malachi on Children of the Corn. He's in there, and a couple others. Bunch of young stars from back then. This wasn't too bad of a movie. It was kind of funny. It wasn't bad. It had some funny parts in it. If you like the 80s nostalgia, romantic comedies, and teenage comedies, this is definitely one to watch. I'd never heard of it. I just seen it and I decided to watch it. It's pretty good. Not bad. I suggest you give it a try. Now, as before, if you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments below, and I'll try to get around to watching it. Maybe you've heard something I've never heard of, a gem that I might have missed. Please let me know, and I'll get around to it as soon as possible. Anyways, I told you I'd tell you the truth, and you've just been told.